Hey everybody, we are back to doing videos because 2020 won't stop. We are quarantined for 10 days at least. Kara came down with COVID last week, and so she's doing well. Today's probably been her best day, and it doesn't seem to be too serious. It's a bad cold for her, but we're trying to keep it to ourselves. So. Thank you for your patience, and I hope this video finds you doing well, and we definitely miss being with you all. I'm going to just kind of continue on with our study of the Sermon on the Mount, because if I don't, we're going to be here forever. And so I would invite you to turn to Matthew chapter 5, and we're going to be looking over verses 21 through 26. Your Bible probably has a subheading, and it says that this passage is about anger. And in many ways it is about anger, but I think it's about more than anger. In fact, I would invite you to pause right now, just pause the video, and go ahead and read through that passage and pray and ask God to open your eyes, to open your heart to understand it and to receive the message that He has through this passage. I'm in the process of reading a book, and the book opens up with a good illustration that I think applies to our passage and to really the overall understanding of righteousness. There's two men, and a man named Greg and Aaron, and Greg and Aaron work together. And Greg loves his job, and he enjoys his work, but Aaron kind of ruins it for him. Aaron claims to be a Christian, but he kind of has a knack for causing conflict. He has a knack for getting people to share personal things and then using it against them. He's got a knack for just kind of belittling people and making people feel like they're not good enough. He loves to kind of pit people against each other so that he can come out on top. He's got the boss convinced that he's the only loyal employee, that he keeps everyone in line, and he just kind of is a big pain. And Greg talks and he says, how can he do these things and think that he's a Christian? He claims to be a Christian. There seems to be a disconnect there. And so he's left with that question, and I think maybe not the answer, but an answer is that Aaron just doesn't understand righteousness. He doesn't understand that being a Christian means being right, not in a self-righteous way, not I'm right and you're wrong, but being righteous like God is righteous. He doesn't understand that a Christian will hunger and thirst for righteousness. And as I've said many times already, that the Sermon on the Mount is all about righteousness. What is true righteousness? And this passage really starts to take and pick apart what righteousness is, and it gives examples. You may remember that Jesus just said right before this, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees, the extra super holy people, as my children's Bible says, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. And so Jesus is going to go through now, and I think he uses 6 examples from the law of Moses to try and show the people what real righteousness is. So the first one, you've heard it said to the people of old, you shall not murder. And whoever murders will be liable to judgment. So here he's taking, like I said, he's taking this law, this commandment, and he's going to use it. He says, you've heard it said, but I say that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to counsel. And whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the hell of fire. In an effort to teach the people about true righteousness, Jesus takes a command from the people's covenant with God that he made through Moses, and he shows them the true intent, the practical reality of the commandment. And he does it without overturning it. He's not saying, you've heard it said, thou shalt not murder. That's wrong. Really, you shouldn't be angry. No, he upholds the truth that you shouldn't murder. But he kind of says, it's not just about the outward behavior of murder. There's something more going on. And the law even speaks to that, but you've missed it. You're focused so much on the outward obedience that you've missed the realities of the heart. So Jesus isn't saying, he's not contradicting it. He's not saying, but I tell you, as in like, what I'm saying replaces it. It's more of a but and. So Jesus has a way of just getting to the heart of the matter. Yeah, murder's wrong. Everyone agrees with that. No one's going to contest the fact that murder is wrong. But true righteousness isn't just about murder. It's not about stealing. It's not about these big sins that we categorize. True righteousness is a matter of our heart. And indeed, behavior comes from our heart, comes from our attitudes, it comes from our thoughts and from our feelings. So he says, I tell you that anyone who's angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Anyone who insults his brother will be liable to counsel. And anybody who says you fool will be liable to hellfire. Anger, insults, name-calling, these are heart issues. And they don't come from righteousness, and they don't lead to righteousness. James chapter 1, verse 19, James writes, know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And the Christian wants the righteousness of God. We want to be like God in his righteousness. And furthermore, James also goes on in a couple chapters later to say, no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in his likeness. Anger is of the same category as name-calling and insulting somebody. We're quick to condemn murder, and we're right to do so. But just being angry with someone is worthy of judgment. Calling someone stupid is worthy of judgment. Insulting them rightly deserves condemnation. It's not just the physical act of murder that's wrong. It's the heart that leads you to that act. An angry heart with your fellow human being. Conflict with your fellow human being who is also made in the image of God. They're no better than you. They're no worse than you. They don't hold any more value than you. So the issue here that Jesus is pinpointing is how we treat our fellow human beings. To demean someone or belittle someone, to cause them to feel small or insignificant or of less worth than you, is all worthy of hell, because they're equal to you. They hold the exact same amount of value to God as you do. So Jesus brings the purpose of this command is not just to keep people from murdering each other. It is to, Jesus uses this passage to raise our awareness of our own hearts. Because it's easy to say, well, I've never killed somebody. I'm a pretty good person. Have you ever been angry? Have you ever called somebody stupid? Have you ever made someone feel insignificant? Then you've murdered them with your words. Jesus wants us to actually focus on our hearts. He doesn't want us to focus on our actions. God deeply cares about who you are, how you feel, what your thoughts are. He wants us to think about what makes us tick. That's what he cares about. What we want, what our desires are, what we feel. To be satisfied with righteousness, to desire righteousness, to have a righteousness that surpasses that of the Pharisees. Jesus's disciples have to do the hard work of examining our own hearts. We have to know ourselves, our inner person. And in God's eyes, examining our attitudes and our speech is just as important as not committing murder. Let me say that again. In God's eyes, examining the inner person is just as important as not committing murder. That may sound outlandish. That may sound crazy. But it's true. Because the person who does commit murder and the person who hates his brother, in God's eyes, they have the same heart. So this leads us to a little bit of self-reflection. What have I said under my breath, or perhaps not so discreetly, about those with whom I disagree with politically this week? Those who you're either in one of two camps. You're either devastated or you are full of glee and joy. What are we saying about the people we disagree with? What do I say about those who frustrate my plans at work? What do I say about the guy who cuts me off while I'm trying to turn? Or better yet, who doesn't go fast enough or soon enough when the light turns green? Am I belittling them in my mind and in my heart? That is the same attitude that murder comes from. Now, Jesus has his own examples and application because he's, this is a sermon and he's the master teacher. And he's working to pull the veil from over our eyes to get us to see what true righteousness is. So we can see what true spirituality is. So he kind of brings it down through two examples. Picking back up in verse 23. So if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there you remember your brother has something against you, leave your gift before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. God cares more about your heart than the things you give to him. It doesn't matter how sincere our prayers are. It doesn't matter how cheerful we are in giving our offerings. If our heart isn't right toward your spouse, towards your mom, towards your dad, towards your children, towards your neighbor, towards a coworker, if your heart isn't right towards them, God would prefer you get right with them before you pray, before you write your check and put it in the offering plate, before you serve a meal. This is actually what true righteousness is. It's what true worship is. It's what true spirituality is. That it's not just about the actions. It's not just about the prayer. It's not just about the giving. It's not just about the service. It's about the heart behind those things. So imagine we're in a church service and we've just got done singing a song and or taking the offering or whatever, and somebody just gets up and walks out, and they get in their car and they drive home and they knock on their neighbor's door and they say, I know what I did offended you. I know I shouldn't have said what I said, and I'm sorry. I want to make it right. How can I make it right? that would honor and please God more than if we just stay there and continuing going through the motions. That would be evidence that God has actually got a hold of somebody, and they actually care about the state of their own heart. They actually care about their actions. They're not deceived into thinking, oh, it's okay that I said that to my neighbor and offended them and they got mad because I'm at church and I'm a good person. You see, us gathering every morning at church to sing songs and to hear the scriptures read and to hear preaching and to give and to fellowship and to pray, that's not actually what true Christianity is. Those things are vitally important for our spiritual growth. But we can fall into this mindset where thinking that's where true righteousness lies. That's what makes me a good person. That's what makes me a Christian. That's what makes me right with God. And it's false. It's not true. True righteousness is caring about how we relate to other people. And not so that we can look good, but because we actually love them. We actually value them as people made in the image of God. So when we leave a conversation with another person, do we leave them feeling like they're valued? Do we leave them feeling like they're important to us? Do the words we use show them that we love them? Show them that they're valuable? Show them that they're important? Show them that they have worth? Or do we leave them feeling like they're unimportant? Feeling like we don't care what they think. We don't care how they feel. Or think about how you relate to your spouse, your interactions with them in a day in and day out basis. When you interact with your spouse, do you uplift them? Do you value them? Do you show them that you highly esteem them, that you honor them? Or one that hits more home for me is the way I treat my children. Even when I correct them. When I correct my kids, am I murdering them with my words? Am I crushing their spirit? Am I just putting a knife in their soul and deflating them? There is a way to correct. There's a way to teach. There's a way to rebuke that leaves the person with honor. That shows you do cherish them. They're trying to help them along the road to righteousness. You're trying to help them along the road to wisdom, to a good life, to better living. When we interact with people, are we murdering them? The second example Jesus uses starts in verse 25. He says, "Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you've paid every last penny." Now, this may seem completely out of place. This final example that Jesus gives us is designed to show us the universal and general truth that lays at the foundation of his teaching. On the one hand, what he's saying seems to be completely unspiritual. But on the other hand, it demonstrates a greater truth. And when properly understood, we realize that this is highly spiritual. And the greater truth is that of the relationship between conflict and destruction. Whenever there is animosity, destruction is soon to follow. Therefore, it stands to reason that it's wise to pursue reconciliation while you still can. Before it's too late, before destruction comes and tears a relationship apart. This is the way relationships work. When conflict and animosity go unresolved, then the best case scenario is the relationship just ends. This kind of a dwindling destruction. It may not be bright lights and explosions and people screaming and yelling, but it's destructive nonetheless. At worst, when conflict and animosity go unresolved, the end result is murder. They come from the same place. You'll notice in the previous example, it was if you realize that your brother has something against you. It's not that I have to forgive them. It's that I've offended them and I need their forgiveness. See, all of this is an example of someone who's poor in spirit, someone who's meek and gentle. They can go to another and not be deflated in pride, and they could just be, look, I've hurt you, I've damaged you, I've devalued you, I haven't upheld you, I haven't honored you. I want to make it right. How do I help make it right? You see, when we get to the point of murder, we left righteousness back at Albuquerque. We've gone so far and left the value of this human decades ago. So the root of murder, the root of anger, the root of animosity, the root of conflict, the root of belittling somebody, calling someone a fool, taking advantage of somebody, is all the same. It's not valuing this person as an individual, as having worth and value before God. It's putting yourself above them, higher than them, more significant than them. And that is wicked. That is unrighteous to the core. The spiritual element to this last example is that the reason conflict and animosity in relationships ends in destruction is because relationships are built around God. God is a relational being, and he created us to be in relationship with him. Listen to this. Paul says in Romans, "For if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son." We are at odds with our Creator. So this example of the person coming to terms quickly with the accuser, that's us. We stand accused. We stand in debt to God because we've run away from him. We've decided to live our own way. We have offended the God of the universe, the creator of the universe. And so we stand condemned. And yet, he offers us a way out. He offers us reconciliation. So we need to run to him before the judgment day so that we can stand together with him, united with him, rather than accused before him. And he hands us over to be tormented in hell because we can never repay him for all of the offenses we've committed against him. And here's how he does it. Here's how he offers us this reconciliation. It says, God, through Jesus Christ, gave Jesus to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. So it's because Jesus Christ shed blood, shed his own blood, that we can be reconciled with God. And when we are reconciled with him, we taste his righteousness. We want to be filled with his righteousness, so we empty ourselves. We become poor in spirit. We become meek. We mourn our state of unrighteousness. We recognize our own heart. As Jesus' disciples, we come before him and we turn inward and look at ourselves and recognize the lack of righteousness within us. And we cry out to him to fill us. And he gives us opportunities to commit deeds of righteousness as he fills our hearts with righteousness. So when our relationship is right with God, our relationship with other people can be right. You've heard that it said, "Thou shalt not commit murder." We can all agree with that. But are we willing to look into our own hearts, to see the anger, to see the animosity, to see the belittling of another human being? Are we willing to pay attention to the words that come out of our mouth? When we snap, when we are frustrated and say the wrong thing, say the thing that doesn't show value and love to the person we're speaking to. May God give us the grace to repent, and may he fill us with righteousness so that we can show the world what it means to be a Christian. Thank you all for joining. Please like, respond, comment however you want. I'd love to engage you on this topic.